Red wasn't her name, not really. It was more of a nickname born from the scarlet hoodie she wore everywhere, a splash of color in her grayscale world. City life.
She lived with her mom in a high-rise, concrete and glass stretching towards the sky.
Take this to Grandma and stick to the main roads, okay? No shortcuts.
Red rolled her eyes. Mom worried too much, but she grabbed her skateboard, the wheels humming against the pavement. The city stretched out before her, a maze of sound and motion.
Red zipped through the alleyway, her shadow stretching long and thin. It felt good, this freedom, this rebellion. She imagined Mom's face if she knew. The thought made her smile.
The alley opened into a park, green and sprawling, empty except for a man sitting on a bench.
Nice hoodie. Going somewhere?
Red hesitated. She hadn't seen anyone else in the park, and his gaze made her uneasy. But she wasn't scared, not really. He was just a guy sitting on a bench.
My grandma's. She's not feeling well.
The man smiled, a flash of white against the dark suit.
The woods can be dangerous, little one. Especially with that basket of goodies. Stick to the path, all right? Don't talk to strangers.
I know.
Red shrugged, pushing off on her skateboard. She didn't need his advice. She could handle herself. She sped down the path, leaving the man behind, his words echoing in her ears. She didn't look back. The woods were different from the concrete jungle she knew, quieter, greener. Sunbeams slanted through the leaves, dappling the path. The air smelled of pine needles and damp earth. She could hear birdsong, high and sweet, a counterpoint to the rhythmic whir of her skateboard wheels. She felt a thrill of excitement. This was an adventure.
The path wound through the trees, twisting and turning. It was longer than she'd expected. She hadn't seen anyone since the man on the bench. Maybe he was right, she thought. Maybe she should have stuck to the main road.
She picked up her pace, her shadow flitting alongside her. The trees seemed to close in, the sunlight dimmer now.
Red stopped her skateboard. This time she felt a flicker of fear. S2, we meet again.
You didn't listen to my advice, did you?
I'm just going to my grandma's.
Her voice was small, betraying her growing unease. Little Red Riding Hood found herself on a path less traveled. The man had suggested a shortcut, a narrow path, almost hidden among the trees.
Of course, the man said. But there are quicker ways, aren't there? Shortcuts? He stepped aside, gesturing towards the path. This way is faster, he said, his smile now replaced by a look that sent shivers down Red's spine.
Despite her hesitation, Red's curiosity led her forward, her skateboard bumping over roots and stones. Soon she arrived at a clearing where a small cottage nestled amongst the trees, smoke curling from its chimney. It was Grandma's house.
Come in, dear. I'm not feeling well. S1. Grandma?
Red entered, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and concern. Something about the cottage felt wrong. The air was heavy with wood smoke, the room shadowed and still. Inside the dim cottage, Red faced the figure in the bed, her voice trembling.
Grandma, your eyes are so big, and your hands, they're so rough.
That's because you're not looking at your grandma, dear.
The shawl fell away, revealing not her grandmother, but the man from the park. His clothes were torn, his hair wild, but his eyes still gleamed with a strange light. As Red scrambled back, the man lunged, pinning her against the wall. His snarl filled the room. S1.
You should have listened to my advice. Now it's too late.
Just as fear overwhelmed her, a booming voice filled the room.
Get away from her.
The wolf froze, then with a snarl, leaped through the window, disappearing into the woods. The woodsman rushed to Red, his face etched with concern.
He said he was my grandma, S5. Are you all right?
The woodsman gently led her outside, assuring her of her safety now that the danger had passed. As they waited for the police on the porch steps of Grandma's cottage, the sun set, casting long shadows through the trees. The sound of sirens grew louder, nearing them.
Your grandma is fine. She was at the market, but she's home now.
Relief washed over Red, followed by a wave of shame. She had ignored her mother's warnings and had almost paid a high price. As the police arrived and began their work, Red watched, vowing never to take a shortcut again. Later, back in the city, nestled in her own bed, Red reflected on her adventure. It hadn't been the thrill she expected, but a terrifying ordeal that taught her the importance of heeding advice and valuing safety over excitement. She knew she would never forget the man in the woods, but she also knew she had faced her fear and survived. And that was a story worth telling.